It's been kind of fun watching all of the conversations and reviews surrounding Rings of Power. It gets summed up perfectly right here. Audiences don't like the show, but of course, critics and the machine, they love the show. Supposedly. They say they do. How much of that is real and how much of that is them bending the knee to Amazon? I don't know. I would imagine a lot of them are just pushing the machine as they do. I mean, their jobs are within that machine. And the people that heard it are, of course, real people who don't share the same opinions, so the best thing to do is to attack them. Now, of course, you've got people going after the show, or after the fan base, calling them Forbes because they don't agree. Notably, the biggest one recently, Whoopi Goldberg, who's always out there giving her 2 cents and nobody really cares. The only reason that she has any platform is because she's on The View, by the way. And I don't even know how that show still exists, considering, I mean, who watches it? But nonetheless, she gets to run her mouth and try to put fans down and says, have they read the source material? Which I found kind of funny. Like, have you read the source material? But she's including House of the Dragons in here, by the way, which no one cares about. Like, not no one cares about. People like the show. No one cares about the Valerians anymore. George R. R. Martin came out and explained how it works, and that seems to have pleased everybody. I'm fine with it. I think they actually look pretty cool. I like their white dreads. But she's saying that people are up and roar about that when I haven't really heard anybody say anything other than positive things about House of the Dragon, because it is actually a pretty good show. But, of course, she's running her mouth about Rings of Power criticisms, and like I said here, saying people haven't read the source material. What a dumb thing to say. Also, never forget that she also literally denied a very famous event in World War II, a horrible, tragic event, where a lot of people were taken out by the enemies of World War II. You know who I'm talking about, but it's YouTube. I don't know if I can say those things on here, even though I'm just telling you what she said. She was a denier of that event. Literally played it down and laughed about it on a talk show. Just got a little bit of a sabbatical and then was allowed to come back. She's an awful person, and she looks really bad now, very unhealthy. I'm just wondering why she is allowed to say the things that she says and gets absolutely no blowback. Barely any media blowback. She got to come right back to her job, even early, because she was supposed to be gone like 2 weeks. She was only gone like a week and a half, and they acted like fans demanded her return. It's gross and disgusting the way that this double standard is applied in Hollywood and in the media. Now, let's get to some of the damage control going on for Rings of Power. So this is actually a positive article from Forbes, because why would they write anything else? Why would they be honest about anything? But they're at least honest about this. So it's funny how they write this, because they actually criticize the show, but they do it in a positive way. They're very careful not to try to turn anybody away from the show. But what I found funny is how they admit here that Galadriel is the worst part of the show. Yes, part of this has to do with Galadriel, who I find myself actively disliking at this point. It's hard to feel upbeat about a show whose central protagonist is also its weakest link. See how they do that? But then they go on about how, the show will fix itself and it's best, it's okay. But they admit that Galadriel is awful, because she is. She's the worst part of the show. Morfydd Clark's acting is awful. I don't know how these horrible actors make their way into Hollywood, and Hollywood actively simps for it. I also find it funny that most people make these arguments about her being an awful character, awful acting, and will comment on how she's the worst part of the show, but yet all of the criticism is a bunch of racists who never complain about House of the Dragon. It's funny. It's like, well, they give that one a pass, but this one they're going all in. I don't think it works like that. But Galadriel, worst part of the show. They admit it here. Yes, part of this has to do with Galadriel, who I find myself actively disliking at this point. Right? And this Eric guy isn't the only one saying that. So now they're coming out and kind of running some damage control, saying, oh, Rings of Power star Morfydd Clark on how humility will play a big part in Galadriel's evolution. Basically saying, don't worry, she's going to change. She's going to become more likable. Just stick with it. Don't jump off after season 1 because we're going to make changes and make her not so insufferable, which they probably will. They've tried to do that in the recent one, in episode 3, where they have this big, long, slow-motion horse ride where she's on this horse, like, smiling with this big, dumb grin, and it's just moving in slow motion. It just is it's one of the many awful decisions that they've done with this show as far as, like, the way they shoot it. Some of the decisions in this show blow me away. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they've picked nobodies to direct this show. Like, the people that are responsible for this show really have no justification for being where they are when it comes to the directing and everything. And it shows with some of the god-awful pacing that this show has. The pacing in this show is absolutely miserable. Like, I'm just counting the minutes for it to be over. But they have Morfydd Clark out here running damage control, talking about, oh, she's going to evolve. Don't worry. She's going to change. Don't worry. Don't worry. She won't be insufferable forever. It's just funny. Like, this is damage control 101 with them. Like, they've been running damage control big time, but they can't get away from the criticisms of this actress because she is bad. And I don't think it's all her. I think a lot of it has to do with the writing and the directors, of course, but Galadriel is just awful on the screen. She's boring. She comes off as mean, rude, bitchy. She's just unlikable. And when you have a character like that, how do you expect anybody to really get into the show? Bad casting. Karen, the elf. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about all this. I'd like to hear from you. Also, if you would please like, subscribe, share the video. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that notification bell. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. Make sure to check out my locals. There's a link in the description. It's a fun community that I'm trying to build over here. If you don't want to support me on YouTube, you can come over here. None of that money goes to YouTube. You also can just come over here for free. But if you are a supporter over here, I do plan on doing an extra live stream once a month and throwing links to the supporters so you can actually come on and have a supporter live stream with me. Also, it's a good place to catch all of my content. You don't have to worry about notifications like YouTube. They'll definitely work over here. So come check out my locals.